somebody that I have leaned on many occasions in the past, as she has done when it comes to me. We've been partners on the show for the last 10 years. And a lot of times some of these things happen and it's just
Ladies and gentlemen, buckle up, because what I'm about to tell you will make every sports scandal you've ever heard look like a Sunday picnic. Forget Deflategate. Forget the decision. Heck, forget Antonio Brown doing Antonio Brown things, because this right here, this is the contract bombshell that just ripped Molly Qerim's career to shreds. That's right, Stephen F. Smith, the man who never met a microphone he didn't like, has just dropped a career-ending revelation. And guess what? It's not about LeBron, it's not about the Cowboys, it's about his own former partner in crime, Molly Qerim. So here's the million-dollar question. What happens when the face of ESPN finds a dusty, long-forgotten contract that Molly Qerim signed, thinking it was locked away forever, and then blasts it out for the entire world to see? Spoiler alert, careers don't just get dented, they get destroyed. Anonymous insiders are calling this the nuclear option. Fans are calling it straight-up betrayal. And Molly?
News for you, you can't wake up and be Mad Dog Russo. You can't wake up and be Adam Shine. You can't wake up and be Stephen A. It takes work. In the end, we all have people.
So, let's rewind the tape, folks. Before this whole contract exposing circus set ESPN on fire, there was a time when Stephen A. Smith and Molly Qerim were the so-called golden duo of First Take. You know, the ultimate odd couple, Stephen shouting like the world was ending every time the Cowboys lost, and Molly sitting there like the calm schoolteacher reminding the class to stay on topic. On-screen chemistry, unmatched. Behind the scenes, well, that's where the story starts to smell like week-old fast food. Because while viewers thought Molly was just moderating debates about whether LeBron is the GOAT or whether Tom Brady sold his soul to the football gods, what nobody knew was that Molly had already signed on the dotted line, a contract that would come back to haunt her years later. A long-term deal. The kind of deal that whispers in fine print, "You're not walking away from this without consequences." And here's the kicker, Stephen A. had the original. Yup, the actual ink on paper, stamped and sealed contract that Molly thought was buried in some forgotten ESPN filing cabinet. But nope. Turns out, ESPN's filing cabinets have longer memories than ex-boyfriends with Instagram burner accounts. And somehow, someway, that paper landed in Stephen's lap. Now pause for a second and ask yourself, why would Stephen A., already pulling in $20 million a year to scream about the Knicks, even care about Molly's contract? Why would he dig up something so old it probably still smelled like printer ink from the early 2010s? The answer is simple, power. Stephen A. isn't just a commentator, he's the self-proclaimed face of ESPN, the king of hot takes, and apparently, the keeper of career-destroying receipts. Insiders whisper that this wasn't just any contract. This was a loyalty clause, a paper that basically tied Molly to ESPN and its golden boy, Stephen A. himself. Rumor has it, the deal included bizarre conditions like never challenging Stephen's takes on air, always deferring final word to him during heated debates, and, brace yourself, not pursuing independent media projects without ESPN's direct blessing. Sounds more like a medieval marriage contract than a sports media deal, right? But Molly signed it. Maybe she thought it was standard procedure. Maybe she trusted the suits at ESPN. Or maybe she was just trying to lock down her role on TV's biggest sports talk show. Whatever the reason, one thing became clear. Those signatures would one day come back to burn her career to ashes. Fast forward to today, and Stephen A. decided to do what Stephen A. does best. Make it loud, make it public, and make it messy. According to sources, and by sources, I mean the kind of unnamed insiders, who love talking when they smell blood, Stephen didn't just wave this contract around in private. Oh no, he exposed it on air, in front of millions. Imagine sitting on your couch with your morning coffee, expecting another debate about whether Dak Prescott is elite, and suddenly Stephen A. whips out a contract like it's a WWE storyline. Ladies and gentlemen, he practically shouted, "The truth must be told. Molly Qerim has been hiding this from all of you." Cue dramatic music. Cue Molly's jaw hitting the floor. Cue ESPN's lawyers scrambling to cancel their lunch plans. And let me tell you, the internet did what the internet always does. It exploded. Twitter threads, Reddit conspiracies, TikTok edits with ominous background music, you name it, it happened. Fans were posting side-by-side photos of Molly looking nervous on air, claiming, "See, she always knew this day was coming." Hashtags like hashtag Molly exposed and hashtag Steven has receipts started trending faster than a Taylor Swift breakup song. But here's the twist that makes this whole scandal 1,000 times juicier. The contract Molly had wasn't even the original. Oh no, the papers she thought she controlled were just a copy. A watered-down, conveniently edited version that conveniently left out all the career-destroying clauses. She thought she was safe. She thought nobody would ever see the real deal. But Steven had the original, the smoking gun. And when the original meets the copy, one word, checkmate. This is where the scandal shifts from being just a workplace spat to being full-on betrayal theater. It's not just Steven exposing Molly. It's Steven basically saying, "You thought you could play me with a photocopy? Nah, I've got the real one, and I'm about to use it." And here's the part that really makes your jaw drop. According to whispers from inside ESPN, this wasn't a spur-of-the-moment decision. Stephen A. allegedly sat on that original contract for years, like a ticking time bomb, waiting for the perfect moment to detonate. And what better time than right after Molly walked away from ESPN to join NBC? Think about it. Molly finally breaks free, finally takes a leap toward independence, and bam, Steven pulls the rug out from under her by reminding the world of a contract she never truly escaped. It's like trying to escape a haunted house, only to realize the ghost followed you home. So here we are.
Because again, that's her story to tell. But I do think it's important that I started off the show by just acknowledging my love and appreciation for her and what she's meant to me and what she's meant.
If part 1 was the spark, part 2 is the wildfire. Because the moment Stephen A. waved that contract like a magician pulling a rabbit out of a hat, the entire sports media world flipped upside down. This wasn't just a workplace spat anymore. This was Shakespearean betrayal mixed with a Netflix-level scandal, and the audience couldn't get enough. First, let's talk about the contract itself. According to anonymous documents mysteriously leaked online, and by leaked, I mean screenshotted in blurry JPEG format with red circles and arrows like a bad true crime YouTube video, the contract didn't just lock Molly into ESPN. It practically handcuffed her career. The most shocking clauses? Oh, buckle up. The Stephen clause. Molly was allegedly required to uphold the reputation and primacy of Stephen A. Smith as the central voice of the program. Translation: don't outshine the king. No exit without approval. If Molly ever tried to walk away before the contract expired, ESPN could pursue damages worth millions. Yes, millions, basically career jail time. The gag order: she couldn't speak publicly against ESPN or Steven, even in vague social media subtweets. That's right, not even a sad Instagram story with a cryptic Drake lyric. And the best part? The leaked version showed Molly's signature, neat as a schoolgirl's, right at the bottom. Internet detectives immediately zoomed in, circled it, and tweeted, "Y'all, this is her handwriting." No cap. But while the contract itself was explosive, the public reaction turned it into a nuclear meltdown. Twitter went full FBI mode. One user wrote, "So Molly wasn't moderating, she was contractually muzzled? Bro, this is worse than reality TV." Another added, "Stephen A. Smith is ESPN's Thanos. He's been collecting Infinity Stones and Molly was the last one." Reddit wasn't any kinder. Threads with titles like "Molly's Fake Freedom Exposed" and "Stephen A. played the long game" climbed straight to the top of r/sports and r/conspiracy. Some fans claimed this contract proved Molly's on-air awkward smiles were actually cries for help. Others insisted this was part of a bigger plot, ESPN using secret contracts to control its hosts like puppets. And then, of course, came TikTok. Oh boy, TikTok. Within hours, edits were popping up of Molly's most famous on-air moments set to ominous music. You know the one, that deep bass, dun dun dun, sound that makes everything look like a horror movie trailer. One viral clip even had the caption, "When you realize Molly wasn't moderating, she was surviving." It got 3 million views in less than 24 hours. But the absolute kicker? Anonymous insiders. Because no good scandal is complete without mysterious figures feeding gossip to hungry journalists. According to one supposed ESPN staffer, Stephen A. had been bragging about this contract in private for months. The insider claimed, Stephen called it his trump card. He said, and I quote, "When Molly makes her move, I'll make mine." Another leak suggested Molly herself knew this day might come. Apparently, she kept her copy of the contract in a locked drawer at home, but remember, her copy was the edited, watered-down version. Sources allege she once joked to colleagues, "If ESPN ever tries to ruin me, I'll just flash this baby and prove them wrong." Little did she know the real deal was sitting quietly in Stephen's possession, ready to blow up her entire narrative. Fans couldn't stop dissecting this twist. Memes flooded the internet. One showed Stephen A. holding the contract like it was the Declaration of Independence, with the caption, "National Treasure 3 starring Stephen Smith." Another meme had Molly's face photoshopped onto a Monopoly get-out-of-jail-free card, except the card was stamped void. And let's not forget the celebrity reactions. Even big names outside sports weighed in. One Hollywood actor tweeted, "This is crazier than half the scripts I get offered. Somebody optioned this contract story for Netflix already." Meanwhile, a famous rapper posted, "Free Molly. ESPN moving like death row records in the 90s. The scandal had officially jumped out of sports media and into mainstream culture. And once that happens, you know it's not just a headline anymore, it's a full-blown pop culture event. But here's the million-dollar question. How much of this is real, and how much is spin? Because while Stephen paraded the original document like gospel, Molly's camp hit back fast. Her lawyers reportedly released a statement saying, "The contract presented by Mr. Smith is outdated, incomplete, and taken grossly out of context." Translation, yeah, she signed something, but not what he says. The public didn't care. The public rarely cares about the boring, legal clarification part of a scandal. They just want the drama, the tea, the spectacle. And Stephen knew it. He leaned into it hard, reportedly smirking during commercial breaks and telling colleagues, "Let them talk. Controversy pays." And he's not wrong. Ratings for First Take spiked overnight. If part 1 was the setup and part 2 was the explosion, then part 3 is the rubble, the smoke, the flames, and the desperate scramble to figure out who survives. Because make no mistake, when Stephen Smith held up that contract, Molly Qerim's career didn't just take a hit, it went into full-on meltdown mode. The first wave of fallout came from, you guessed it, the lawyers. Within 48 hours of the reveal, reports surfaced that Molly's legal team was drafting not one, but 3 separate counteractions: defamation, breach of privacy, and, get this, emotional sabotage. Yeah, I didn't even know that was a thing, but leave it to celebrity lawyers to invent charges that sound like rejected Netflix thrillers. Stephen, of course, doubled down. Sources claim he told ESPN brass, "Let her sue. I've been sued before. I'll be sued again. But this time, I've got the receipts." And by receipts, he meant the original contract, which he allegedly handed over to ESPN's legal department like a kid turning in homework he actually finished for once. The problem? ESPN couldn't exactly stay quiet. Social media was eating this alive, advertisers were nervous, and higher-ups were panicking. One insider leaked that an emergency board meeting was held where an exec literally said, "If this contract is real, we're sitting on a powder keg. If it's fake, we're sitting on a lawsuit." Translation, either way, ESPN was screwed. And then came the whispers of government involvement. Don't laugh. Apparently, a few watchdog groups started asking whether ESPN's talent contracts violated basic labor laws. Imagine that headline, Congress investigates ESPN over Stephen A. Smith contract bombshell. Could you picture Stephen sitting in front of Congress, yelling, "I respectfully disagree, sir," at a senator? Twitter sure could, because within hours, fan edits were circulating with Stephen in a courtroom yelling at Judge Judy. But the real knife twist came from the fans themselves. Once the internet decided Molly had been destroyed, every rumor turned into gospel. People claimed she was planning to resign. Others said she was on the verge of a mental breakdown. One viral TikTok even claimed she was moving overseas to escape the humiliation. The video had sad piano music, grainy black and white Molly clips, and the caption, "Gone but not forgotten." It racked up 2 million likes. Celebrities joined the frenzy too. A famous comedian roasted the situation on stage. Stephen A. pulled out that contract like Maury saying, "The lie detector determined that was a lie." The crowd went wild, and clips of the joke went viral. Late-night hosts joked that ESPN had more drama than the Kardashians. Meanwhile, Molly tried to keep her cool, but every public move she made backfired. She posted a vague motivational quote on Instagram, "The truth will always come out." Within minutes, her comments were flooded, "Too late, sis. Stephen already brought it out." Another post about moving forward was met with memes of Stephen holding the contract and the words, "Not so fast." And let's not forget the most brutal consequence: sponsors. Rumors flew that several brands quietly pulled back from working with Molly until the situation cleared up. In the business world, controversy sells, but only if you're the one controlling the narrative. Right now, Steven was winning that war hands down. Some industry insiders even speculated this might be the end of Molly's ESPN run altogether. One anonymous exec allegedly said, "We can't have moderators who are bigger stories than the debates themselves. That's a liability." Translation: Molly's days might be numbered. But here's the twist nobody saw coming. What if Steven's reveal wasn't the final play, but the opening move? Rumors swirled that more contracts, more secret clauses, and even hidden emails could surface. The phrase, Steven's contract files, started trending like it was some kind of lost X-Files season. The narrative was no longer just Steven versus Molly. It was Steven versus the system. Fans started speculating, if Molly was trapped by shady paperwork, who else at ESPN was, too? Names like Max Kellerman, Skip Bayless, and even younger anchors got dragged into fan theories. Was ESPN basically running a host prison with ironclad contracts? That's when the whole thing stopped being a scandal and became a movement. Hashtag Free Molly trended for days, but then came hashtag Free the Hosts, as fans demanded ESPN release everyone's contracts for transparency. Spoiler alert, that wasn't going to happen. But the public pressure? It was undeniable. So here we are. One contract, one reveal, and suddenly an entire sports empire is under a microscope. Molly's career is hanging by a thread, Steven is basking in the chaos, and ESPN is scrambling like someone just pulled the fire alarm. And the million-dollar question is this: what happens next? Does Molly fight back in court and somehow claw her way back into public favor? Or does Steven, the self-proclaimed king of hot takes, end up being the man who burned down his own network from the inside out?
I'm not talking about her, but the